Hi there, guys. The video that I'm going to do today for you is based on the tag Draw My Life. I've watched a few of them and I thought it was pretty fun, and I also thought it was a really good way to get to know somebody on a more personal level, especially on a more relatable level. You know, when you find out some stuff about somebody's childhood or their life and you can relate to it because you went through that same thing, I think that that's really valuable. So that's what we're going to do today. So I beg your forgiveness in advance for my poor drawing skills, but we will do the best we can. So, Draw My Life, Angel Moreno. Okay. I will try not to make this video too long for all my pals with ADD out there. Okay. All right, so where shall we begin? We shall begin at the beginning. So, let's see. Oh, this is gonna be crazy. That's me. Big old head and everything. Let's see. What should I do? Those are windows. In case you couldn't tell. All right, so we begin at the beginning. I was born in New York City. If you can even see that. I don't know. It might be up too high. There we go. I was born in New York City. To be specific, Bronx, New York. The boogie down Bronx. My mother had divorced my father because he was physically and emotionally abusive. He was also an alcoholic and a drug addict. So when I was about 6 months old, my mom left him and she moved in with her mother and father, which is my grandparents. There's Grandpa. And there's Grandma. And there's my mom. And I gotta be somewhere in there, I guess. Terrifying. If you gave birth to that, I think that would be terrifying. So that's me. At home in the Bronx with my mom and grandparents. So when I was young, I went to elementary school at Public School 8 in the Bronx. And then my beautiful mom met my absolutely, positively, terrible, ugly, awful stepfather. My mom used to be a waitress in a diner, and my stepfather was a cook in the restaurant. Well, actually, that's a lot more glorified than he deserves credit for. He was the guy that works the fry cook, or the, what do you call it, the fry stove. He was flipping burgers, okay? Let's not sugarcoat it. So when my mom met my ugly, terrible, horrible stepfather, we then moved out of my beautiful home with my grandparents. There's love there. Lots of love. So we moved out of a beautiful home and we moved into a house in Yonkers. So Yonkers New York. So here is where I went to junior high school, and in New York, junior high is 7th grade and 8th grade. I went to a junior high by the name of Mark Twain Junior High School. And it was not good. I'm going to resort to drawing stick figures for this particular diagram here. So in Mark Twain Junior High School, I was, for the first time in 6 years, I was without my friends. The people that I'd went to the same school with for 6 years of my life in elementary school in the Bronx, New York. And here were all these new kids. Those are evil faces. I was a very plain girl, and I was cool with that. I always wore my hair straight and back in a ponytail. I wore just regular clothes. My parents shopped at Macy's. Nothing special, but yet I didn't wear rags or anything. But the kids at school, they had name brand jeans, and they had perms in their hair, and they wore makeup. And so I was an outcast, and I was ugly and gross. So they all made fun of me. Because I was different, because I wasn't fancy like they were. And you know how kids can be. If you're different, then you're the enemy. So they would put signs on my back. They would say stuff when I walked in the room like I farted, or I stink, or I'm ugly. Just all kinds of horrible, 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 horrible stuff. I remember one day, the bullying was so bad that I came home crying to my mom, and I said, "Mom, I don't want to go to school anymore." So she said, of course, what moms would say, and, you know, just ignore them, and your education is more important, forget about those kids, just concentrate on your schoolwork, you know, the things that moms will say. But the fact of the matter is, when you are a kid, school is basically your world. It's your social network. And despite what your parents tell you, it's almost as if you care more about what the kids think than what your actual parents think. So you do what you have to do to survive. You know, you pretend you're somebody else or whatever. So, of course, you know, there were conferences between my mom and the principal and so forth and so on. Eventually, the kids left me alone. So here I was in 8th grade, at the end of 8th grade. We had our little junior high graduation. And it was now time to pick out a high school. Well, in New York, I had a choice of Lincoln High School, Saunders High School, Gorton High School, or Roosevelt High School. So each school was known for its certain things. For example, Roosevelt was known for the cheerleaders. That's a cheerleading skirt. And Saunders, I probably am spelling these wrong, but that's cool. Saunders was like the Technical Institute. So these are like some goggles. Lincoln was where all the badass kids were. So there was smoking and drugs, real ghetto type high school. Then there was Gorton High School. Now, mind you, each of these high schools, we did do a tour, a class tour, so we got to kind of see what the place looked like. We got to go into several classrooms. We got to, you know, kind of talk with the teachers a little bit, stuff like that. Now, Gorton High School, to me, had the very best balance between everything. And I've always been a person who loves music, whether it be listening to music or singing. Unfortunately, I do not know how to play any instruments or anything like that, but I still do love music. And when I went to the Gorton choir room and they were singing and playing instruments, actually they were playing Louie Louie, which is really awesome, and I was just in love. This was the place for me. Also, it would be an opportunity for me to reinvent myself because a lot of the kids that were bullying me were all going to Roosevelt High School, where all the popular kids were going anyway. So I was ready to make a new life. So I'm still living in Yonkers. I'm still living with my mom and my stepfather. Now, around this time, unfortunately, my mom, like I said, was a waitress. She got sick. And upon first glance, they didn't know what was wrong with her. So she had to undergo many different tests, hospital stays, operations, all this kind of stuff. And it ended up that they found out that she had multiple sclerosis. That I do know how to spell right. Multiple sclerosis is a neurological disease that affects coordination and many motor skills and things of that nature. So as my mom developed more symptoms, she eventually had to quit her job as a waitress because her hands were shaking, she was dropping plates. There were times that she was having trouble keeping her balance and walking and standing, and there were issues with her eyesight as well, things like that. So she had to quit her job and go on disability. And then, of course, our life changed because now my young, fun-loving mother, who used to be my partner in crime, and we used to go to the pool together, we used to go horseback riding together. Now she was ill and she was in the hospital a lot of the time, and she was taking a lot of medication, and it was making her very sleepy a lot of the time. It was just really hard. And here I was, a teenager, and it really sounds ugly to say this, but I'm sorry, it's the truth. And the last thing you want to deal with as a teenager is having to care for a parent or take care of a sick parent, because you want to be loud, you want to go shopping, you want to be with your friends, you want to be with boys, and you know, you don't want to be at home feeding your mom soup or cooking her soup or puffing her pillows or anything. It's not that I didn't love my mom. I'm just being real. I was a teenager. I was, you know, a young adult. Anyway, so that was what was going on that end. Meanwhile, on the other end, here I was in this new school, Gorton High School, and I was having the time of my life. Nobody knew me. I could be whoever I wanted to be, as bad as I want to be. And so, based on my bubbly personality, of course, I became a cheerleader. And nobody told me that I stunk, or I was ugly, or I was fat. They welcomed me with open arms, and everything was good. I don't have any arms there, do I? Gotta have some arms to be a cheerleader. Rah, 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 right? Now I gotta draw some big old pom-poms. Pom, 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 pom. Yay, pom-poms. So there I was, being Ms. Cheerleader, and I experienced a lot of things at Gorton High School. I was only there for 2 years, 9th and 10th grade, and during that time I had my first kiss with a boy, and I went to a boy's house for the first time, and I don't know, you know, hung out with my female friends, my girl posse. It was fun. It was crazy times. We did some things, boy, I'll tell you. They are engraved in Gorton High School forever. But I will not incriminate myself on YouTube. Ah, the tales I have. The tales I have. Man, that marker is, woof, that marker stains, doesn't it? Okay. We will try not to use that one again. Alright, so back to this guy. Remember this guy? Ugly, ugly guy. Had to draw his head as big as possible because he thought he was the shit. He is not Asian. I'm not drawing anything of that nature. He was evil, so I'm trying to make his eyes look, you know, like he's evil, like he's mad, you know, that kind of expression. So my stepfather ended up having a lot more time alone with me, with my mom being in the hospital so often. And I was already at the age where I was old enough to know he was not my father. He was never going to be my father. He was ugly and stupid and a big old asshole. And I just wasn't having it, because at that age, one thing I did have is a lot of attitude. So he and I would argue a lot of fights. And one night it turned physical, and I finally hit him back. And we got into a big old fight. He had a cut lip. You know, it was crazy. I went crazy on his ass. So my mom was torn between the two of us. She was sick. She needed quiet. She needed peace. She did not need to be aggravated. So, she went through a lot of emotional distress with what we were doing. So, in June 1992, which was the end of my second year in high school, 10th grade, oh, I could draw that pretty damn good. Look at me. Got some skills there. Got some skills to pay the bills, baby. Yeah, that's a plane. So, my mom was a lonely woman. She was sick. She had seen her life change so drastically. She had become so dependent on my stepfather. So, they wanted to teach me a lesson, but it kind of backfired on them. And what the lesson was, that's me. That's me on that plane. That's me on that plane right there. They wanted to teach me a lesson, so they bought a one-way ticket from New York going to California. Now, at the time, I didn't have anywhere to stay in California. I didn't know anybody in California. It was really crazy. But the whole lesson was they thought that they were going to bring me to the airport and I was going to get all freaked out and cry and scream, be like, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll do whatever you want. I don't know where I'm going. I don't want to be homeless. Please, I'm sorry. But I didn't do that. I was, like I said, I was full of attitude. So basically, I was just like, fuck this shit. Where there is a will, there is a way. Hopefully someone will help me. I don't know what to expect. We'll just take it minute by minute, kind of thing. So here I set off to sunny Los Angeles, California. So I arrive into Los Angeles International Airport, LAX, and I just had a backpack with some random stuff in it. And I just remember from TV shows and movies, whenever I see people that are homeless, they're always in these homeless shelters with a bunch of beds. So I go to the phone book. Remember phone books? Yeah, back before the internet and cell phones and Google and all this stuff you kids have the luxury of having today. There was phone books. Huge, bound paper filled with all kinds of goods and services, addresses, and phone numbers. Anyway, so I called a shelter, homeless shelter. I went under the section, and the first thing they said is, how old are you? So I said, I'm 15. So they said, you have to go to a youth shelter. So they gave me a phone number for a youth shelter. So I ended up taking a taxi to that youth shelter, and they took me in, and I had a shower, and like I didn't have anything. I didn't have a toothbrush. I didn't have any soap. I didn't have anything. 15 years old, you know, clothes on my back and backpack of some toys and stuff, and that was pretty much it. So what was also kind of funny about that night is, again, this is June 1992. I forget exactly what date it is. I think it was more like the 22nd or the 25th or something. But it just so happened to be, this is a crazy drawing, that there was an earthquake that night. So I got to experience my very first California earthquake, where I had to get in the door frame and everything. And it was kind of scary. I mean, it would have been scarier if I was alone, but since I wasn't, I was in a shelter with staff members and lots of kids and things like that. So, but it was interesting. So, haven't experienced many earthquakes in California in my time living there, but first night, how do you like it? So, the first thing to do in the shelter was to assign me a social worker or a caseworker, and basically they would try to find me a more permanent home, because the shelter is a temporary situation. So I ended up being in the shelter for a couple of months, and then I finally was moved into a beautiful house. Very big house with a garage and trees. I moved into a group home. So this group home consisted of a total of 6 girls. I was one of 6. And we lived in Pacific Palisades, which is amazing because it is a very wealthy part of California. And I'll tell you, I will never probably have enough money to live somewhere that nice. So here it was, me and all these other girls, and we each had to share a room. So it was 2 girls to a room. We had to do chores, all that kind of stuff. And we went to we went to Pacific Palisades High School, which was not too far from where we were. Pacific Palisades High School was very difficult for me. It was definitely not the same experience as it was transitioning from junior high to Gorton High School. This was me being a stranger in a new state and just like being really, really different. Like, people in California, kids, the way they act, their fashion, the way they do their hair, the things that they talk about, the way that they talk, everything is so different. And when I was in New York, like, I was really into like rap and hip hop and pop music and, you know, Michael Jackson and Madonna and, you know, all kinds of stuff like that. And, you know, I kind of had a little rough edge to myself. I was kind of a bit of a tomboy back then. But at Palisades High School, you know, you had different cliques. So you had like the surfer kids, you know, because it was a beach town. And then you had the preppy kids, and you had the nerdy kids. And, you know, then you had like the gangster type kids, you know, the rap and hip hop. They're into all that kind of stuff. And it's funny because every day at lunch we had this grass quad, and all these cliques of kids would all sit together. And, you know, here I was, and I didn't know who to sit with. I didn't know where to go. I kind of felt like I really didn't belong. Plus, at that time, I had, of course, a very thick New York accent, which does come out every now and then when I get extra loud and emotional, whether it be happy or angry. The New York tends to come out, especially when I say water. Can I have a glass of water, Ma? So it was definitely very much so hit and miss at Palisades High School. Really didn't feel like I belonged. I felt like, I mean, nobody was mean to me or anything like that. I just felt like I really just didn't fit in. It was, I don't know. It just wasn't happening for me. And unfortunately, back then, like I said before, you know, you're supposed to be concentrating on your schoolwork. You're supposed to be thinking about your future and stuff like that. And it was really more of a priority to me to focus on socializing and pleasing these other kids. That's what I wanted to do, and I would change myself. I'd change my hair, I'd change the way I dress, change the way I spoke, anything, just so I could be accepted by them, so I could, you know, kind of feel that love from your peers sort of deal. Man, this is not coming off. What the, who the, I don't know what I done did over here. Oh my god, this is terrible. Anyways, so I was at Palisades High School for 2 years, and like I said, at the group home they have staff members, and there was this one staff member there that I did not get along with. So her attitude was basically like, do what I say or go somewhere else. I'm not going to mention names, but I'm just saying she loved the hell out of Michael Bolton. So I told my caseworker, I said, I want to get out of here. I cannot deal with this bitch no more. Please, I'm about to lose my mind. So, my wonderful social worker found me a foster home this time. Now, this foster home was very unique. It was in Inglewood, California, and it was a mini mansion. And again, we had a total of 6 girls. It was a beautiful house, and there was a older couple, and they were like the mom and dad of the house. And it was real cool there because when I was at the group home, I had to do chores, and I had to give them all my money from my paycheck, and they would save it for me. They wouldn't spend it or nothing. It's just they want to make sure you save the money, so they won't let you spend it on clothes and junk, you know. And but at the foster home, I was able to have my money, buy whatever I wanted to buy. I could eat whatever I wanted to eat whenever I wanted to eat it. And everything was good. But unfortunately, I realized something. I spent 2 years in that house. So now we're talking about 10th grade, 11th grade and 12th grade. I mean, no, I'm so confused. I'm old. Gorton High School in New York was 9th and 10th grade. Palisades High School was 11th grade, and Inglewood High School was 12th grade. So I went to 3 different high schools in the course of my 4-year at high school. So I had realized when I was done with high school that I didn't have very much direction. The foster home mother and father really did let me be free and lazy, and I realized that for somebody as young as I was, maybe that wasn't the best thing. It sure felt good. It was fun while I was having it, but once I was out of high school and it's kind of like, all right, so now what I'm going to do with my life, then it wasn't so fun. So I really felt like I needed structure. Anyway, so I eventually moved on to my very first apartment. I was 17 years old when I graduated in June 1994. 94, cousin, 94, whoop whoop. And so I got my very first apartment in Hollywood, California. These are windows. I'm not a very good window drawer, so I'm just going to do that. And that's me saying, hello, I'm in my apartment. Hello. And of course, you know we got to draw the Hollywood sign right here. HOLLYWOOD. Hollywood. All right. So I had my first apartment in Hollywood. It was definitely an experience, you know, having to pay rent every month and things like that. And over the course of the next couple of years, I lived in various places. I lived in Long Beach, I lived in LA, I lived all over the place. I lived in Pasadena. I was just all over the place. Now, we're going to step back into history a little bit here. So, I had told you about my mom and my stepfather and how I ended up in California and how they had kicked me out and how their little plan backfired because I didn't run away, you know, from the airport and begged to come home. I stayed the course and I made it through and I reestablished my life in California. Well, for many years, my mother and I did not speak at all. I just felt like she chose my stepfather over me, that she loved him more than me, that she cared about him more than me. And I was like, you know what? If this is the way they want it, if this is what she needs to be happy, then fine. I'm just going to focus on me and my life. So it was a very long time. I'm trying to think. I finally reconnected with my mother probably in about the year 2000. So from 92 to 2000, she didn't know my phone number, she didn't know my address, never wrote her a letter, no birthday cards, Christmas cards, nothing. I'm telling you, honey, when I have an attitude, I have an attitude. So, I was working at Toys R Us. I've worked many jobs in my life, and at that time I was a cashier and stock girl at Toys R Us. And a friend of mine that lived in my apartment building in Hollywood said to me, hey, you know, the owner of this apartment complex also owns a property in Las Vegas, so he offered me the opportunity to go out there and be the manager of that apartment complex, and then I could, you know, get a paycheck and have rent for free and be in Vegas. It'll be awesome, but I'm going to need an assistant, and since you're working at Toys R Us making, you know, $4 an hour, would you like to come and be my assistant? And then, you know, we can have money and everything. So I was like, hells yeah. So that began my Las Vegas love affair. Yay! Love, love, love. So, went to Las Vegas, and this apartment complex was in a real shitty area, and it was quite dilapidated. It needed a lot of structural repair. There was some unsavory activity happening in the area, all kinds of stuff. But the light side is living rent-free, being in Las Vegas, and at that time I was not 21 yet, so I could not drink alcohol or anything like that. But I could go to the buffet in the casinos, and that was a lot of fun. Also around this time, I've always had a love of animals. So I went to the shelter here in Las Vegas, and I adopted me a cat. A big orange baby named Freddie. Love of my life. This guy, though. Just don't understand. My big orange baby Freddie. So, 6 months into my relocation in Las Vegas, the apartment complex ultimately got shut down for violations, various city violations, permits, and structural issues, and just things that were not attended to, and they were shut down. And the management basically kind of abandoned the property. So me and my friend, we went back to California, back to our apartment complex, and so forth and so on. I got a job working at Goodwill, being a cashier. So, you know, back to life, back to reality. But I had my cat Fred, and it was good. So then I moved from Hollywood, and I moved to Los Angeles over in the Olympic and Vermont type area. And I had this little apartment, but it was mine. And now I was working at a pet shop, which unfortunately, sadly enough, is not there anymore. But I was working at this pet shop. My hair was short then. I had me a bob going on then. Oh yeah, I was working that bob. I was making it happen. And after meeting and having relationships with several different guys, and I'm talking about long-term relationships, you know, 4 years with one guy, 3 years with another guy, I finally decided that I wanted more out of my life. So I had reconnected with my mother, and I had quit my job in California, and I'd moved out of my apartment, put all my stuff in a storage unit, and I went home to New York, and I stayed with my mom for about 2 months. And of course my stepfather was still in the picture. Do we have to draw his ass again? But I guess we do. Those evil, beady ass eyes. I wish I had a red marker. Times like this. Yes. Every time I draw him, he gets worse, doesn't he? He only had hair over here. That's why I'm drawing that. Anyway, so here I am, an adult woman at this point. I'm in my 20s. And I'm standing up to him, and I'm basically telling him where it's at, because my mother had finally got to a point in her relationship with him where she saw some of the ugliness that I had already seen back in 1992 when they first kicked me out. So they were on the brink of divorce. So my stepfather and I were fighting again, so he kicked me out, so I had to go. So I had been chatting online with this guy, and we made friends, and he was a cowboy who lived in northern Michigan. And so I was like in this spot in my life where I wasn't really thinking very logically. I like to call it my midlife crisis period of my life, because it's like I did some stuff and I took some risks that I would never take today and never had taken before. So I was just like, oh my God. But he was like, hey, you know, I live with my family. He was in his 20s too, you know, a little bit younger than me, like 2 years younger than me, but he was in his 20s too. And he was like, hey, you know, we got this big house on this farm, and we have all these animals and everything. So if you want to come and stay with me for a while and hang out in Michigan, I think you'll like it, you know. And to be honest with you, going from New York to LA, it kind of sounded refreshing, you know, to live the country life, you know, green grass and fresh air and animals and stuff. It just sounded so attractive. So I was just like, you know what? I ain't got shit else to do. Stepfather's being a dickhead. You know what? Fine. Let's do this. So I came out to Michigan, and his family treated me like I was their daughter, and you know, and so I lived there for a while, and then I decided that it was going so good that I wanted to get a job. Now, unfortunately, in this particular part of Michigan, it was mostly a tourist type town. They depended on tourism, you know, financially for the state of the area. So it was very hard for me to find one job that was full-time. So I ended up having to work 2 separate jobs just to basically equal one job. Also, it was the first time that I had been in the snow since I had been in New York in 1992. So I kind of missed the snow a little bit at that point. Like, I didn't mind a vacation from it for all those years, but I had to buy a snowsuit and had to buy big old boots and all the thick gloves and all that kind of stuff. But I had some fun. But I'll tell you though, the country life really is beautiful. I mean, you could see clearly all the stars in the sky. You could see all the constellations. It's just so beautiful and so amazing. You could hear crickets chirping, and of course the animals, and there's lots of forest areas and lakes and stuff. I mean, it's just like all those country songs, you know, they're singing about, you know, going in the lake and going fishing and this, that, and the other. It's like, oh, it's true. So I lived there for a year, and I just basically got tired of struggling financially. Now, obviously, the cost of living was way cheaper and stuff, but I just got tired of the struggle, you know, 2 different jobs and such low pay and stuff. And I was just like, you know what? I don't want to go through another winter. You know, been there, done that. I want to go back to California. So I had a job that I wanted to work for, and I had to be on the waiting list for a while because it was a really good job. And I finally got called, so everything came together. And then I came right back out to beautiful, sunny California. Very happy to be back. So I was living in Long Beach, and I was working, and I was single, and I had made a decision after working at my job for about 2 years. I said, you know what? I'd been wanting to go back to Vegas and establish a life there for a really long time, but because of this relationship or that relationship, I always put it on the back burner. So you know what? I'm going to make this my goal. Nobody's going to stop me. This is what I want to do. So that's what I did. So I started saving up vacation time, and I started saving up money and just working. I was working all the holidays. I was doing whatever I could do to get the money to live in Las Vegas. So what I ended up doing is I had saved up about a month of vacation time, and that's what I did. So I was away from my job in California for a month, but yet I wasn't fired or in risk of losing my job because I was technically on vacation time. And I also had saved up enough money where I was able to have an apartment in Las Vegas for a month, and food and transportation and stuff like that, gas for my car and everything. So I was able to do all that stuff. And within the first week of being there, I went and I applied at a whole bunch of places, and I got a whole bunch of offers, which was really good. So then when I came back after my month vacation, I officially gave my employer my 2 weeks notice, and then I was off to Las Vegas. Yay! Draw myself here. Got the old suitcase right here. And there is me walking somehow. I don't know what is happening here. Maybe this wasn't such a good idea. I think I'm embarrassing myself by drawing all this shit. I don't know what that is. It's probably my humpback. Anyway, so here I am, off to Las Vegas. Woo! So, I officially moved to Vegas in May of 2007. And I've been here ever since, working my same job. Then, after I had gotten myself established, you know, career-wise, financially, apartment-wise, all that kind of stuff, I decided I was lonely for a man. So, I met this guy, actually, by way of my job. And we hit it off really, really good. We had a lot in common. And you know what happens next, folks. Fell in love. Yeah. I got bit by the love bug, and we fell in love. And we got married. We didn't have a fancy wedding with a fancy dress or anything like that. We just went to, you know, we got our marriage license at the court or wherever it is, and we were just married there at the court. You know, civil wedding, you know, nothing too fancy. But you know, things change, and it's real sad. And maybe we moved into things a little too fast, but he changed. My boss likes to say people don't change, they just reveal themselves. But let's just put it this way. Some of the stuff that he was doing, he started drinking a lot, gambling. He became somewhat emotionally and physically abusive, and I felt like a prisoner. I was sad all the time. But I loved him. And unlike just dating somebody, I felt like when it's a marriage, you really got to give it your all. And you can't just quit on somebody. You can't just give in so easily. You got to fight. And you got to make it work. And you got to get through some of the bullshit. Because that's what love's about. And you don't just abandon somebody just because, you know, they change, right? You're supposed to love a person forever. You know, their hair goes gray, they gain weight, they get wrinkly, they become sick, whatever. You're supposed to love them forever. And for a while I did. I did everything that I could. And of course I changed too. I'm no angel. But, you know, when I feel like I'm not being respected or treated properly, then I start getting nasty and I start getting loud. You know, and I start hollering and screaming and banging stuff, you know. So we got divorced. We had spent some time away first, separated, and kind of came back together. And, you know, we tried everything. We really did. It didn't work out. He was interested in other women. I wasn't it anymore. I was fat and ugly and good for nothing, basically. And everything I cook, I burn. And everything I do is wrong, and the only thing I'm good for is money and sex. And then in the end, not even sex anymore. So, this is me. This is the picture. Emptiness. Solitude. Depression. And then, very, very sad, but my mom finally died. My mom continued to live in New York all those years. And like I said, I had reconnected with her back in like 2000. And from that point on, we had kind of become best friends. So she died in January of 2012, just a couple years ago. And, you know, it's been all these years. And it's still hard because she was my last living family member since I'm an only child and I don't have any other grandparents or cousins or anybody else. So pretty much in 2012 when my mom passed, that was the end of my family. And of course she had passed from just complications from decades of the multiple sclerosis, just basically weakening her, wearing her down, tearing her apart. Her body just couldn't handle it anymore. So, for the last couple of years, it's been pretty lonely for me. I have my kitties. Now, unfortunately, my beautiful big old Fred, he died back in 2005. He got some kind of sickness that basically ate him up. And he lost a lot of weight, and then he was my little Fred. But I got 2 new kitties. Not any kitties that I picked out, kitties that were given to me from friends. And I still have my babies today. I post a lot of pictures of my cats on Facebook and Instagram, and I have featured Peaches, my boy, on one of my YouTube videos so far. Jasmine is a bit antisocial, but they are the loves of my life. When I come home to my empty apartment, this is who I have waiting for me. And they follow me everywhere, to the bathroom. They're always rubbing on me everywhere. and their bowl is full of food and water. They just love me. They're just very affectionate, warm, caring cats. So that's pretty much what I have at this moment in life. So to close this video up, I am now 38 years old, and I live alone in Las Vegas. I am not the party girl that most people think girls who live in Las Vegas are. Actually, as a matter of fact, I feel sometimes like I don't even live in Las Vegas because I don't go to the Strip very often unless I want to go to the mall or something like that, or get something specific that's only available on the Strip. So I live a very dull, boring, lonely life, and that's part of the reason why I decided to start doing YouTube videos, because I think it would be a nice outlet, you know, to kind of feel like you have someone to talk to and share things with. You know, it's nice to, you know, come home from a long day and have somebody to tell, you know, the stories of the day, what pissed you off, what made you feel good, you know, whatever it is. So I do go back to California very often throughout the year. I still have a lot of friends in California. And of course, there's lots of events like county fairs and things that, you know, it was my home for very many years. Can't just give it up so easily, you know. Anyways, so I think this is a good time to put a bow on this video. I know it was a lot longer than I intended. I intended it to be like 15 minutes. So I just wanted to take a moment. Thank you all for watching this video. Don't forget to rate, comment. Love to hear what you think. Any suggestions for how I can make better videos, or anything you would like to see me do or talk about? What do you want to see? And don't forget to subscribe, because when you subscribe, you get an email notification that will tell you, hey, Vegas Angel posted a new video. So you can be the first to run over and see it. Everyone, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoyed getting to know me a little bit better, a little bit about my life. Hopefully there are some things that you can relate to. At 38 years old, I've experienced a lot. Now I'm worried about the next 38 years. Oy vey, what do they have in store for me, right? Well, take care, and thank you so much for everything. Bye-bye, everybody.